Well, hello. It's the first time I'm streaming on YouTube, let's see how this goes. I'm going to stream myself creating a game today. It's going to be kind of an interesting little game. Not too difficult. I've got a lot of the assets created already, but I'm going to also create some assets on stream. So let's see how it goes. The first step that I'm going to do actually is, if you can see, I've got this thing that looks a little bit like a chipboard. The idea of the game is to, yeah, well, you'll have a little character who you can click and drag, and he'll move in the direction that you drag, and you move him a toward points where he goes and stops, and it's going to be like a puzzle game. So he'll move from wherever you move him to as far as he can go in a particular direction. Let me write some stuff down here real quick. Okay, let's see now. Um, I didn't put up any tags on this, but that's fine. Now, so I've got some of my things over here, buses, chips. You can see the circuit board. I've got the circuit board tile set. I've got some things I'm calling good level. I need to actually create my character though. Uh, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And we're just going to create a new one. My tiles are 32 by 32, so I think I will have it be the same here. I don't see any reason not to. Let's see here. What would move around on a chipboard would be electricity. This doesn't really look like your standard interpretation of electricity, though. Maybe that color? Yeah, let's go with something like that. And I'm just going to make something that looks a little silly. It doesn't have to be anything special. Let's create, oops, let's not do that. Okay, and he has this creepy smile. That's great, I guess. I don't like it. It looks a little like a Muppet of sorts. Oh, that's not what I wanted. This looks a little silly. I think it's going to be okay though. Give him an outline. And now we're just going to animate him. The first thing I'm going to do is let's give him a little creepy eyes. I'm going to give him an idle state. So idle will start off with this. I think he's just going to blink. We'll go with however many this is, 4 I guess. Actually, let's not do it that way. Let's do it this way. Obviously that is simpler when it's this. And we can leave that as the idle state and go through and do this manually in Godot. Next up, let's start with this state again. We'll go ahead and set the loop on this. Idle. This one we're going to do sort of a moving, and since this guy's electricity, I kind of want to make him turn into like a little lightning almost. Not going to do anything too spectacular. I think what I'm going to do first is make a little playground thing here. See what I can do to make this look interesting. We'll take that. That's weird, it didn't actually turn. That's approximately what we wanted. If for some reason you're just joining us, I'm just working on creating a character for a new game I'm working on. It's a simple little puzzle game. It's going to be an Android game, so hopefully Turns out kind of cool. The main character is a piece of lightning who looks a little creepy, but who cares? Maybe not lightning, but electricity. When he's in this state, we're going to give him a mouth. Because we're sadistic. We're going to give him his eyes back, or at least one of them. Alright, and I do kind of like how that looks. I think I will take this, give him another eye here, or do we want it up here? Let's do it up here. So now, we just have to get from this point to that point. I think I'm going to extend the mouth just to give myself a little flexibility. Alright, let's turn on onion skinning. We will copy. Now if we look, I think I'm actually going to go to the other direction. Delete that frame and do this. So this is just working in reverse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, kind of rotate it in a sense. Let's go back to a normal one here. We're not going to put too many frames in here. So we'll draw out some extra stuff here. And it's going to look pretty creepy for the in-between frames. That's all right. For now, I'm just doing the outline. In a little bit, I will work on moving the eyes. I like to keep them separate though, because it can cause a lot of issues if you try to do too many things at once. just looking to find out how to get the actual link to my stream so I can send this to people. Here we go. Okay. Sorry about that. All right. Come back to our actual. Hey. Oh, thank you. That's unusual. Sequoia. I don't usually get that. I also have my cat here. She's purring, although probably can't hear it. Alright, so I'm just working on starting at this face and working backwards to get this one. This is going to be what movement looks like. Oops, wrong button. I don't really generate ASMR, but if that's what you're here for, then more power to you. I do listen to it. I'm definitely one of those folks who loves it. And I'm going to go back and do the eyes later. This is just for the in-between states. Eyes and mouth, I should say. Okay, I think we can just stick with 4. I don't think we need too much more here. I'm going to go ahead and do the eyes and stuff before I do outlines. Alright, so when we're like this, first of all, it's knowing that we can't see where our eyes are specifically. Alright, I think that looks vaguely okay for the eyes. I'm going to fill in behind it. Yeah, it doesn't look great, does it? Well, that's alright. It'll be a little bit cooler at least once I actually have some of the Godot code in there to make this look nice and fancy. Alright, now let's take the mouth. So it was curved. We can keep it curved a little bit, maybe. No, we cannot. That's alright. So we get rid of it. Oh boy, this is an absolute travesty of a character. Yes, I am building a game in Godot, and it's going to be basically it's going to be a little puzzle game where you move this guy around on a puzzle. Let me just show you real quick. For some reason, oh, I see. People keep pinging me on Discord, so my apologies if I go away real quick. But yeah, so here's what it looks a little bit like a chipboard, as you can see. And when my little character eventually flies along, there's going to be different traps, things like this. There's going to be chips, those do different things. And circuit boards, we have a bus. Different things like this will create different effects in the game. And yeah, I'll get into that more once I actually start creating the game. It looks a little basic right now, and I'm just creating my character for the time being. I'm going to just do a little bit here. Never mind the fact that my guy looks like Harvey Dent from Batman, all twisted and mangled. Definitely mangled. I think this sort of looks reasonable. Let's turn this off so it doesn't look so crappy. Okay. Now we'll just add in our outlines. We do not want it to be in yellow, obviously. And I'm just doing it this way out of sheer laziness. I don't love the look of that, but I'm going to keep it. I am planning to potentially publish this on Android, even on stream, just so people have that. You can see how it's done. It's not too difficult, but a lot of people struggle with it in Godot. MC, yes. The main character is a little, I'm calling him a piece of electricity, which sounds really silly, but basically he's going to be a little thing that goes around this board, doing different things on the, on the board. I'm going to have things like, let me just reference my design doc real quick. A thing that auto turns you, so when you land on it, it turns you instead of you just stopping and you keep going. And there's going to be a thing that lets you delete the tile behind you, which is going to be super interesting, and I think that's going to kind of really change how this game works. I think that is going to be a pretty interesting little effect. There's going to be things like bombs. When you run over them, you take damage, that type of stuff. Yeah, it's not too special, but I'm hoping at least it's a little bit interesting. Alright, I'm just going to export this. Fixed columns 4 is good. Here is good. And hopefully we'll get into some level design today too. Alright, let's just go take a look, create our character. I'm going to make him a kinematic body 2D. One thing, I don't know if I have this set up for collisions. Let's just take a look real quick. I don't, so I'm going to do that real quick. If we go look at what size my borders are, we've got, they should all be, looks like 7 by 7. So it's going to be a bit odd of a pixel snap, so I guess we just have to go with 1 pixel. Which I don't love because it turns into that mess, but it's sort of okay. We can make it work. And so all I'm doing now is drawing out my collisions before I even create my character. I'd love to do this. I should have done this before I started. I didn't realize I hadn't done that yet. One of the nice things though is that thing, and in fact, little known fact in Godot, you can create as many collision shapes as you want and put them in the same thing. Now if this happens, if you hit page, let's see here, page down, it'll take you to the other one. It is a little finicky because the tileset editor is not awesome right now in Godot. Hopefully they'll work on that. Now if you notice though, my character, he's also 32 by 32 and all these tiles are 32 by 32. Which means I will have to make his collision be only whatever 32 minus 7 is, 25, so that he can actually fit inside here. It might even have to be minus 14. I think that's right because it's on both sides. But I'll do that later once I've got the character built. Go like this. This tile set was made in Tile Setter. I decided to throw it together. Oops, that's page up, page down, takes you back. It's pretty basic. I didn't have to do anything special to make this. It just, I sort of wanted to make one to see what it looked like. These all have to match up with the corners. They have to touch the sides or it won't create a complete collision mesh. And then you're in some serious trouble. Oops, that's not what I wanted. So yeah, you can add as many of these as you want or need. In my case, since it's made in Tile Setter, it's just got all the basics for a 3x3 minimal. This is the fish tile. That's what I call it. Actually, no, this is not a fish tile. This is corners. Fish tiles are down below. But more plugs. These are plugs because if you look at the bit mask, they look like plugs. If we zoom out a little bit, that's a short plug, that's a tall plug. One of the things I highly recommend, by the way, is you create a project and have a 3x3, if you're using Tile Setter, have a 3x3 tile set created already, 3x3 minimal, and then you can just copy the bit mask from it, assuming it's the same size. That's the important thing. If it's not the same size, you'll actually get, it'll be thrown off, but there's a pattern to it, so it's not too hard to understand. But like I work with really obscure tile sets on occasion, and it's hard to see, so I like to just have copy paste available, which I do. So that's a nice feature of Godot. One thing that's not great is I can't copy paste the collisions. That's something I hope they add in the future. I've attempted to add it in the engine myself, but for whatever reason I could never get it to work. Probably because I'm incompetent when it comes to C++. Page down apparently goes to the next collision shape that was created in a particular tile, or goes to the next tile, so I can hit page down, page down. Actually, that took me to the previous one. Interesting. Okay, so page up goes to the previous. Page down goes to the next. Oh, that makes sense because that one came after that. Pig up. Okay. It's because we were going backwards. Sorry, this is a little slow and tedious. Hopefully we will get to something more interesting soon, like drag movement. Not what I wanted. I don't know if that breaks it, because technically it would still be creating a complete collision mesh, but I don't like to do it just in case it would break it. One thing that is nice though is if you've got it set to this right here, it says keep polygon inside region rect, you can just drag up to the corner, whatever side, and it will automatically stop. So like I'm way up here and it automatically stopped. I don't know. Yeah, I have to do this again. Which is annoying, but that's fine. Yes, you absolutely can. Briflaben, I don't know if that's how that's pronounced. But I put tile maps on top of each other all the time. In fact, I had a version of this game originally that was fairly different from what I'm planning here. And I had what looked like the... let's see here. There we go. These gold... whatever they're called. I guess they're wires in a chipboard like this. But you could only travel along those. So I had this as the background. And so it would look like that with the gold wires running through it. And you could only travel on those. It was interesting. It didn't really turn out the way I wanted it to. That's why I'm sort of redoing this. Making this look a little bit cleaner, making the game a little bit cleaner. And by the way, welcome to Godot. I'm glad you joined us. It's a great community. Let me know if you have any other questions. I'm pretty senior at this stuff. Happy to help wherever I can. That's a fishy. And the reason, if you look at the bit mask, yeah, these two are. They look like fish, and I never knew why. Oh. Another problem that Godot sometimes has is it holds on to pointers, it looks like. We are actually almost done, I promise. And I will try not to do this again on stream before I've actually started the stream. Or I will do it before I start the stream, rather, sorry. So that we don't have to sit here and watch it. Oh, come on. Start from this corner. There we go. That's a little bit better. At least I can modify it. sure why it does that. The interesting thing is our character is going to have a whole bunch of things to interact with. So I get to create a bunch of scenes that should be pretty interesting. The key to Godot, to be perfectly honest, and this is something that Gonki has found as well, so I feel justified in that sense because he's such a good developer. Basically, everything should be a scene. Okay, so because this one is this, now this is a little trick you can do that makes this a little bit easier since character can never get into here. You can just click it when you have square selected and it'll automatically put that around the whole thing. So if you don't click and drag, it automatically does it. Which is just a little nice. It's not super necessary, but it is nice. One thing you got to be careful about too is you can't add points after the fact. So for collision shapes and tile maps, so just make sure that if you do mess it up, delete it immediately and rebuild it, because otherwise, unless you can move the points to fix it, you probably won't be able to fix it. Super annoying. There we go. Okay, just a few more now. I think I got everything up there. Oh. What did I do? Let's see. Yeah. So you have to click first. That's the other annoying thing. You cannot hit the square. You have to have the select on. Basically, in order to switch squares, you have to have select on. That's probably why it switches to select after you actually place one. Just guessing. These are the side plugs. It's the same thing as at that earlier point, but they're on their side. As you can see, it looks like fat one here, thin one here. And the four-way plug. Oops, I already messed it up. Okay, we are on the last one, so I will be actually showing the creation of the character next, along with a bunch of the character functionality. It's actually going to be a very different type of character, a different type of game. It's not anything like the normal ones, because basically the character is very different from normal. So now that we have our collision shapes, our actual board will just work. That saves automatically. The collision will only be found around the outside. I'm going to throw my character in once I've created him. I'm going to say player. And as usual, physics bodies need a collision shape. I'm going to pick, I'm just going to make him actually be square. My guy also needs a sprite to represent himself. Think. think I'm going to do a normal sprite. I was debating whether or not I wanted to do an animated sprite, but I'd rather have more control over it, so I go with a normal sprite. And how you fix this is you go to animation, select the V frames, it's 2, and the H frames are 4, obviously. So given that we have that, we'll also need an animation player. I'm going to move this up a little bit so I can see this better down here. Stupid Mac. We'll give the collision shape here. We'll pick rectangle. I think we're just going to make it be his height. Why is my snapping not on? There we go. I'm going to keep this completely centered. I don't want it to appear above or below anything, and I think having it just centered is good. Let's go ahead and create our animations real quick. This is going to be interesting because the animation for sort of functioning as electricity is going to be different from transforming into electricity, and I'll show you what I mean here shortly. So I'm just going to make one idle. Am I zoomed way in here? Yes. Or way out. So how I like to do this is I just go to my sprite, select the frame. This is really the only way to do it. You go up to the next step. Snap is 0.1, which generally is fine for these types of things. You got to make sure to reset the frame to 1. And I think I want frame I think this is what I would prefer. And so now you can change the time. It has to be 1 passed so that you have the same amount of time per frame. We're going to do this. And while creepy, it looks a lot smoother than if I had just left it at the end. You can tell if I do this. His eyes snap open, but I'd rather have them be a little bit smoother. We're also going to make this auto. That means this one plays when the character is loaded in the scene automatically. Our collision shape, now we decided that we actually wanted to reduce the size on this, and if you remember, I said my borders were 7. Now notice the extent is 16, but the shape itself, if we look at the sprite here, is 32 by 32. So the extent is basically half that. And the reason is they multiply it in both directions. So what we're going to do instead is just subtract 7 from this. And we get 9, of course. Now this is going to make it so our character can get into those nooks and crannies. It's not exactly my preferred way of doing it exactly, but interestingly, it does cover his entire face exactly. Maybe a few pixels on top and bottom. But it's interesting that I accidentally drew the mouth exactly that same shape. And now we'll do transform. Now this is just taking us from the face into the other sprite. So let's go here. We start here. We go up 1. Same thing again, we have to reset it. And then you can just click from there. That's why it's got the little plus below it here. And we're going to leave the collision shape the same. We don't want to deform it for this simply because you could probably run into a lot of weird interactions with physics when you do that, and I don't want to bother, frankly. So this is just turning into it. So I think I'm going to leave it there, and I'll just do 0.4 here. Again, that's for the length of time. So it'll look like this when it's in game. I'm going to make another new one, and this is going to be called move. And what we're actually going to do is we're going to key this again. And that's just to make sure that it's in this state when it starts. We're also going to key, go to transform, our scale. And now we'll come up. Let's say this is going to repeat. Let's do it every 2, I think. And since our sprite looks vertically oriented, we'll just put in a -1 here. That'll flip it around. This is set to continuous, so that's going to be interesting. I might swap that to not be continuous. You don't technically have to have all these in here. We could reduce this. If I go down to 0.8 now, technically, in fact, I'll just do it. I'll delete these keys and go down to 0.4. Because I'm on repeat, it will loop back around. So I actually think that's going to look okay. It looks a little strange. Oh, I just noticed something interesting. Sprites used to have a skew on them. This started with our most recent release. It no longer seems to have a skew ability. I wonder if that was removed or if I've done something weird to accidentally get rid of it. Might be because I've got a sprite. No, that doesn't make any sense. Maybe because of the V-frames? I am not sure. Well, regardless, we don't actually need it to skew. I'm just going to let it do this. We'll see how that looks. As you can tell, it's pretty fast. I think I'll leave it. What I am going to do is something a little bit interesting here. We're going to add one of my own custom plugins. I'm going to go find it first. Let's see here. Yeah, there we go. So all I've done is I've gone and found this add-ons folder, and all it contains is this line trail folder. And I've got a series of things in here that I created previously. I have a whole GitHub repository, public, with all plugins that I use regularly. And that I think is pretty useful. So if you want to check that out, let me know. I can link to it. I can put it in the stream description. That could help people. This one is pretty simple. So now that I've dragged it in, I can actually go to project settings, go to plugins. I just hit enable. Then I go add child, and I called it line trail. Now it looks a little weird. I'm not actually sure why it added this, but what I want is this one. It's got the little icon next to it, very little. I don't know why I made it so small, but that's fine. Trail length we're going to make, let's do, I'd like to be a little bit longer. Actually, first thing I'm going to do is make sub-resources unique on this. But then I'm going to do a trail length of, let's just do 20 for now. And the trail width I want to be very small. We're not going to do a thing there though. We are going to switch the color. We will make the color, come on now. This is one thing that pisses me off. Pardon my language. We're going to do a gradient though. And let's try to pick something similar. And then for the end of it, this side is the end. We will do completely clear. Now what this is going to do is it will sort of fade the texture out as it goes along. So I think it should look pretty cool. Hopefully this looks alright. I'm noticing in other things that this doesn't always work, but maybe it'll be fine. And one thing we should do here is for all of our other things, we should key this in case it stops in the middle of movement, and that way we always have the correct scale when we're doing something other than this. Now we're going to play transform backward once it hits the end of move, and interestingly, yeah, it should work fine, because the first thing it does is, actually we should here as well just duplicate this key. Now that will make it so when we play it backwards, it flips around again to forcibly be this way, and then we don't have to worry about it sort of messing up on us. I'm going to go ahead and save this under scenes, and now we can instance a player. One thing I'm going to do right now is we're going to go set up some things here. First thing, so you can see I've already set the window sizes. These are just values for your average Android device. I have multiplied in this case by 1.5. These I had originally at half this size, but there just wasn't enough screen space to make it look good. So I doubled them. That will effectively shrink everything in the screen, but the test width and test height will make it look larger, so that's nice. One thing I'm going to do here is, I switched this already to 2D and keep. This will make sure that no matter what device we're on, it will have black borders and keep the same thing. It may not if they have the exact same screen ratio, but if it does, then that will look nice. Let's see here. What else do we need? Turn off warnings, because I don't like them. Main scene. We'll just go and select our main. We're going to change the background to full black. This is on the boot splash, so it's not super relevant, but we will also be changing the other one. I'm going to leave audio for now. Okay, quality. So we're on GLSE 2. This is for slightly worse end devices, I guess you could say. So I'm going to leave that as is because we want it to run on Android, and Android has a lot of issues. But I am going to turn off oversampling. This has caused issues in the past. So I'm just going to turn it off. We don't need it now because we don't have fonts. But hopefully today I will get to that. Okay, this is what we want to be, all black. I notice that changes our background. I think it looks better as black. Down here, by the way, the reason I don't have anything in there is I'm going to create the GUI down there. Be things like points and special moves, whatever I happen to come up with will be listed down there. Okay, and if we again turn on pixel snap, move our character to exactly here. This would be a starting point. And because of how we did this, the collision shape is 9 by 9. The borders are 7 by 7, which means this is in the exact center of this square. So that's nice. Because the whole thing is, well, it's 32 by 32, but half of it is 16 by 16. So 16 this way, 16 this way, 16 this way, 16 this way. And that should be exactly the center of this square, which is nice. I don't have any movement yet, so let's go ahead and implement that on our character. So you just come up here and add a script. I'm going to leave it in the scenes folder. We're going to be using a few different things here. Actually, let me switch some project settings again. Window, no. Mouse cursor, no. Not yet, anyway. These things should all be done. Okay, here's what we want. Emulate touch from mouse. Okay, that's one thing. Next thing, 2D physics for the layer names. We're going to do environment. Oops, that says environment. We're going to do player. We're going to do pickups and traps. And I think for now that's all we're going to do. We may end up having actual enemies that sort of move around in our levels. It is surprisingly easy to do that, but for the time being, I'm not going to. Now, one thing that we're thinking, or that I'm thinking here, is we can use input event, but actually don't really want that. So the reason is input event kind of handles everything. I think what I'm going to do is handle it with unhandled input, and that will be on this script. For my next trick, I'm going to make sure and set my layer so this forces it so that Godot only checks things that interact with whatever this is. So in this case, it's going to be a layer for player, which makes sense. And then the mask, it's going to interact with all these things. So because it's a player, it's this one. It interacts with the environment, pickups, and traps. And that's how we want to leave that for now. I am going to come back here just for the sake of making sure this is all set up correctly. Notice that tile maps also have collision set. You can define things like make it a kinematic body. It's sort of an odd thing I never really considered, is making it act like a kinematic body. It says use collision parent, so you can force a larger collision object into, or force this one to be part of a larger collision object. I'm not going to do that. It doesn't make any sense. So this one, the layer itself is environment. It's not any of those. And actually, as long as the other things say that they interact with it, I don't think you have to do it. But I'm going to select player anyway. That way it triggers events and stuff correctly for certainty. So let me now go and show you how to handle input events that are unhandled by the user interface. So the first thing we're going to do is just that. And we actually want unhandled. Unhandled input. So you kind of have to know a little bit about what you're writing. I'm going to close this so we have more space here. But as long as you know that unhandled or something like that is in the name, every class has that overridden. So whenever you have, for example, a button here, let's say we have a button at the bottom for, I don't know, I don't have a good idea. Let's just say it's for select attack, and it says punch. I don't know, I'm just coming up with random stuff. When you hit that button, it will consume that event and say it's been handled. Because it's been handled, the player will never see that. But when you have a click and drag here that doesn't actually get hit by any buttons or anything like that, it will recognize it. That's what unhandled means. So the first thing we're going to do in this is say if event is input event, and that gives us basically all of our things here. We're going to do, I'm going to do screen touch. And we're going to store this value. Let me actually go look this up, see what this looks like. So you can hold down Control and then click on it. It'll bring it up in the information here. So you have index position pressed. So part of the reason this is relevant is the index will tell us sort of how many buttons have been pressed at once, or rather how many things have been pressed at once. So for example, if I have 3 input events, I'll get 0, 1, and 2. So I need to make sure that it's the same input event here, same index. So I'm going to actually call this index and say screen touch idx equals event.index. And I'm actually going to ignore the rest of this for now. I am going to say elif event is input event screen drag colon, and then we're going to say and event.index equals screen touch index. For now, I'm just going to pass to get rid of the red. Now, if we go look at input event screen drag in the same exact way, you'll notice we have this relative. What relative does is it tells you the direction, the relative direction, from position, the original position. This is not the original position. If we look here, it would be from this position here that the thing has moved. We're going to normalize it so we get just a direction, and then we're going to take the speed and we're going to use that. I'm not sure if we're actually going to use the speed. We're just going to give them a default speed, I think. Speed can be used to say, actually I think I will use it. I'll use it as a minimum. We're going to come up here now, I think, and just create our minimum. I don't know what the value is, so I'm just going to guess for now. Minimum swipe speed equals, I'll just say 100. That's probably large. I don't know. But we're going to go and say var relative touch equals event dot relative. What was it? It's just relative, right? Yeah. And we're going to say dot normalized. So that gives us what's effectively a direction. we're going to say var relative. Actually, we're going to say speed. Then we'll say first. I'm actually going to take this and move it down because this code has to be pretty tight, pretty performant. If drag speed is greater than or equal to minimum swipe speed, then we will actually do this. And now what we're going to do is we're going to say we're going to take the maximum value of the axes, the major axes for this angle. And probably the easiest way to do that is just through checking the value. So what we'll say is first we're going to take the absolute value of x equals relative touch.x, and we're going to put this in parentheses and say abs. Oh, actually, we don't want normalized here. Or do we? Yeah, we don't. We're not going to normalize it yet. We will do that later. And we'll say abs y equals. Okay, now this will tell us which one is larger. So if we say if abs x is greater than abs y, else. Now, because this is an else and this is, I think I'm actually going to do it this way. Elif y greater than abs x. And the reason for this is a little bit odd. I'm going to do nothing if the drag's in the exact same amount in both directions. I think that makes sense. Basically, if one is the exact same as the other, so if these are equal, I think doing nothing is perfectly reasonable. So I'm just going to actually just say return here because we don't want to do anything. Now, if the x is larger than the y, then we will say var sine x equals, and we're just going to do sine relative touch.x. The reason we're doing sine is we're going to have it move in whichever direction this is pointing to. So if the sine of the x is negative, it's going to move to the left. If the sine of the x is positive, it's going to move to the right. Now we're going to look at, or we're just going to put in a movement speed variable here. Normally I'd export this, but in this case I just don't think we need to. We're going to make it a little fast. And one thing while I'm here is I'm going to grab the animation player. Note it has to be on ready. And the $sign gets you the path to it automatically, which is nice. Okay, and we can delete our little pass here. So now we're going to, in fact, I'm not even going to use the normalized version, which I thought I was going to, but it occurs to me I don't even need to. So what we're going to say now is we're going to set a direction. And this will come back later. What we're going to do now is just say direction equals, now we're going to say vector2.right times sine x. Now that seems a little strange, but let's work this out. If the relative touch.x was negative, so if it was pointing to the left, that's what is negative in Godot, then if we're pointing to the right and we multiply by -1, it'll reverse the direction of the vector. So it'll point to the left, which is exactly what we want. With y, it's a little bit weirder because Negative is up. So what we actually want here is direction equals vector2.down times sine y. Down would be positive if the relative touch y is negative. In other words, if the touch is going up the screen, then the value will be negative, and instead of going down, we'll reverse it and go up. Okay, let me double check something here again. Okay, it does have pressed, so we will say if event.pressed else screen touch x equals -1. And that's just to clean up our stuff, make sure that the drags don't interfere with each other. I don't think they will. In fact, I might try to enforce this to be only one touch, but for the time being, I think this will be fine. Now, this is just for setting the direction. This doesn't do any movement, as you can tell, because I've handled these with an if and an elif. I actually don't even need this. It'll just return automatically. So I'm going to leave that as is. But what I'm going to do now is come down here and say func. And again, this is just one of the ones you have to know, physics process. It's basically the main thing where you want to move characters. You can do things like process if you're moving something that's not a physics body, like for example an area, but I don't want to do that because I am moving an actual physics body. And physics process is the right way to do that. You don't want to mess things up. I'm going to do something interesting in a little bit with the animation player because I forgot to animate it, but I think it's fine for now. So what we're going to do here is just say var motion equals, we have our direction, and we're just going to multiply that by our movement speed. And then we're just going to say move and slide motion. Now sometimes you'll see people doing motion equals move and slide with passing in motion and then storing motion outside of this. That's pretty much only if you want to apply friction or an acceleration of some sort, like gravity. But since this is a top-down game, we don't really need that. It might be reasonable to apply friction, but I don't actually want this thing to stop. I want it to just keep going until it gets to where it needs to where it's going to stop. And interestingly, I think what we're going to do here is we're going to change this a little bit. We're going to switch this to move and collide. I wasn't planning on doing this, but I think it's going to make the most sense. Infinite inertia defaults to true, excludes ray cache shapes, that's fine. Test only false, that's fine too. So what we're going to say here is if collision we're going to say direction equals vector2.0. And the simple thing that does is it just stops it from moving. And I'm going to put in this up here, if direction is not equal to, you don't have to do this, but for the sake of speed, I think I will. So let's go ahead and see if this just works. I'm not sure it will. There very well could be something wrong. Oh. Speed is a vector. Okay. That is unintuitive. Dot length? Is that what I want? Let me see here real quick. Forget what the length. he moves super fast, but he does work, and notice he's got the trail, which looks good. Let me go change his speed a bit. Apparently 250 is very fast, which is a little weird to me. Maybe I did something else here. Because that still seems much too fast. Ah, that's why. We have to multiply by delta. When you're doing move and collide, you have to multiply by delta. Move and slide is the only one that doesn't have to multiply by delta. So it was going much too fast. There we go. And we're going to speed that up now. Go back up to... I did kind of like the speed. We're going to pick something a little large here. Now, one thing, it's hard to tell at this speed, but the color for this, I should say the line is showing up above the character's face, and we don't want that. Unfortunately, we don't get a lot of options. It also looks like it's not picking the right gradient, which I was hoping it would do. I don't think this will fix it. Let's see if we do make subverse is unique on this. Oh, for some reason it deleted it? That is not what I wanted. That is not what I wanted at all. Trail length, we'll make it 20 again. Trail width, we're just going to do a small number again. Let's see if that fixed it. It probably didn't. No. You can tell because it looks black. It shouldn't look black. When yellow fades, as you can see, well, maybe that does look a little darker, but I don't think so. So maybe if I do this, hopefully that didn't erase everything again. Well, that's alright. I thought I had fixed that before. Oh, that's interesting. Found a bug. I don't think it mattered. And I've got my duplicates on there correctly, so I would expect that not to happen. That's okay. And I even have my show behind parent on. Maybe I need this. Get parent. Oh, that is not what we wanted. Oh, actually, sorry. They're actually on the thing. This is a node, so is that going to... Yeah, it doesn't like that. So the way I fixed this in the past is a little bit annoying. I think I can do this a little bit more easily here if I just pump this up one. The line will be behind it. Yeah, you can no longer see it in front, so it looks alright. But it's still in front of the tile map because they are both on 0, and it was added after the tile map was added, so it will be on top. Okay, and this is pretty much exactly how we want movement to work right now. We're getting some pretty cool stuff going, I think. So let me... yeah, let's do the animation. Now the animation is going to be super interesting. At least I think so. Let's go check out our script again. This did something stupid that I didn't want it to do. So I'm going to do this. So when you do make sub-resources unique on the parent, it also makes the script unique. Didn't really need that. You can get rid of that by clicking on whatever it's already clicked on. Give me 1 second. I'm going to grab some more tea. I'm still actually pretty sick, even though you haven't heard anything, but I am feeling better today, so that is why I haven't coughed or sneezed too much. Also, if you randomly see me hitting enter a bunch or anything like that, my cat has her head on my keyboard. Hi, Aldous. She's now sniffing the microphone. I think she's interested in getting into programming. Okay, now to do this is going to be interesting. What we want to do I don't like to yield in my input events, but I think I'm going to do it here just to try it. So I'm going to say anim.play. We're going to play transform, and then we're going to do... Oh. Aldous is pressing buttons on my mouse now. And now we're going to use yield. Yield is a pretty complicated piece of functionality. Hang on, I'm going to get my tea again. What yield does is it pauses execution of the current function until the end of something happening. And the end will be designated by a signal. So in this case, we're going to do yield anim, because that's our animation player, and we're going to do animation finished. And then we're going to do anim.play move. Now, when this happens, we're going to say if anim.current animation is not equal to, and we're just going to put in the name of it. If it's not equal to idle, anim.play idle. And since these are looping, it will automatically be this when it's in an idle state, so it won't play it again, which is good. We don't want it to restart. And conversely, once it's done transforming, it will switch to the move one, and then it will move. All right, let's go ahead and try this, see what happens. Okay, so that actually kind of looks okay. Now, it looks a little silly because, of course, it's not turning. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn the character to face the direction it's moving. And all that's going to require is access to the sprite. Everything else we leave the same. We just turn the sprite itself. And where we're going to do that is right here. So we have our direction already defined. So we're going to say sprite dot rotation equals direction dot angle. I think that's what we want. Let's see. It looks like it's going to be that plus 90. So we say plus deg2rad 90. And the reason we're doing that is because our sprite faces up initially, and Godot prefers sprites to face to the right initially. That's just how it functions. As you can see, everything looks good. I think when we stop, I'm going to go back to the base state instead of leaving it rotated. I might go back to turn it again. I'm not sure yet. I haven't decided on that yet. But I think for now, I do kind of like the idea of having it go back to rotation 0. Sprite.rotation equals, we should do 0, I think. One thing that is clearly not great here, not perfect, is these sides. There's not really enough space or time for the transform to happen, so it doesn't really get to kind of flop back and forth. This is really bothering me. I don't know why that keeps happening. Hey Enrique, how you doing, man? Or is it just Enrique? I actually never knew if I have to add the A or not. I'm talking to PigDev in case anyone is curious. You should definitely check out his videos if you haven't already. So I'm going to show you a little trick now for making this happen faster. I could just shorten the length of it, move all these. In fact, I think I will. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to put the snap down to 0.01. And we'll pull this back. See, that would be exactly the same. 0.01, 0.02, 0.03. Let's go 0.03. And now, because that's at 0.09, we want 0.12. Obviously, we'll move this back. I'm doing super well, actually, despite the fact that I'm still sick. I've got a bunch of tea here. I've got one of my cats keeps trying to sit on my keyboard and sniff the microphone. But aside from that, pretty happy with how this game is turning out so far. Let me just show you what it does. So now the transform happens faster, and we can build our little complicated level now. I'm going to be adding some different things here. I think one thing I'm going to do is have chips block. Yeah, exactly. I'm going to make a new chip scene, and I'm just going to have it be a static body. All it's going to do is block. Not going to be a pickup. I'm going to have the good levels be pickups, and the bad levels be things like explosions. And we'll see where we go from there. Bus is also going to be something, I'm not sure if I want to make it block, because it's a lot bigger. There are a few different ideas, but I think for now I'm just going to start by making blocks. And we're going to do it with a static body. We're going to call this, what was the name of it? This is chip. I'm going to call it chip block because I'm OCD. We'll add a collision shape just like we do with everything. And we will add a sprite. This is not going to be animated, so we don't have to worry too much about anything here. In fact, this is almost all we really need for this. There's no animations for this. There's nothing that is particularly weird here. You are going to see me leave this yellow on here, even though it says shape must be provided. Please create a shape resource. I'm going to leave that alone for now because these are resources, and if we create an inherited version of this, it will actually recognize the new one when we add this. If we don't, they'll all be copied and they'll all be the same thing. So what I'm going to do now is just save this here as chip block base. Actually rename this to base. And now I'm going to do a new inherited scene. And it'll inherit from that. Oh, that's interesting. It didn't save that, which is absolutely fine. We're going to call this 1x, and the reason is I've just got that in the name for that. Now this guy, if we look here, double click, is 32 by 32. So we're going to do the same thing with our shape that we did before and say rectangle shape, and we pick 16 by 16. Excuse me. As you can see, it's a little bit smaller than that. We're still on pixel snap. I don't know if it makes sense to bring that down. I don't think it does, actually. I'm going to leave it as 16 by 16. The other thing we got to make sure to do, I forgot to do this, hopefully this translates. If it doesn't, I will make sure it does. This is environment. It interacts with player. Let's see if it translates. Ah, it did this time. I've seen that not happen. Alright, so the reason I did this in this sort of weird fashion is if I instance my chip block in, why is this not on? I definitely had this, oh, it is on Pixel Snap, okay. Zoom in here. I think I'll place it there. I think that looks sort of the best. And now, character stops on it. So now we can create these difficult puzzles where we can, swipe and get different functionalities based on where these blocks are placed. And I think that sort of informs our design here. We're going to have like a minimum number of moves to beat a particular level. Or I should say a maximum number of moves. Let's make sure here. I think that should be fine. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make another one of these. We're going to call this 2x. Oh, that was not what I wanted. There we go. Chip block, yep, should be the same. Now because it's 2x, this is going to be 32 by 32, I believe. Yeah. Now that's pretty large. I think it is correct though. If we look here, 64 by 64, yeah. We're going to see how that looks in the game because already I'm starting to wonder if it's too big. It looks like it takes up 4 blocks. We have to be very careful where we put it because we can't easily throw off where our player is going to be. Let's see how this looks. I think maybe as long as we just yeah, maybe as long as we make it look good, having it just be out there is fine, and having it be as large as we want is fine. I think for now I'll leave it. I'm going to create a third one. This one is pretty large. So as we can see, it's 96 by 96. So the collision shape, again, rectangle. Whatever 96 divided by 2 is, 48. Nice thing about Godot is you can do arithmetic in the editor and it will calculate it for you. And we'll just save this as our third block. Okay. So at this point, it sort of makes sense to say, what is the ultimate goal? What is our little electricity guy, our little piece of electricity, trying to do? I think ultimately what I'd like him to do is sort of let's say it as rescue the level. It sounds a little bit funny, but basically I'm going to put little markers here, and I'm going to call them good levels. And the markers are things that you have to touch, quote unquote, to save them. So they're going to be areas, because they'll go away when you're done using them. And notice we have some cool functionality now. The other thing we can do that's kind of interesting for individual levels is change our chipboard. We could do this. I'm pretty sure to get rid of this stupid thing, we actually have to restart Godot, which is really bothering me. Maybe just saving in different areas will do it. But if we do that, it'll stop there as well. Now the reason that's interesting is, there we go. We can get around it. But he can't travel in there. I must have messed up the size on this. Let me go reduce it by one more. So I think what's happening is it's getting flummoxed on the... There we go. Whatever. I'm going to quickly close Godot, or at least quit to the project scene, and let it clean up a little bit. Hopefully that will get rid of it. Let's see. Well, it didn't show up. Okay, good. Finally got rid of it. Super annoying. Yeah. Yeah, that's right, Perflavin. The level is corrupt. But cool thing, having variable size maps as well as different blocks and different things that show up in here will make this a super dynamic looking game. I'm going to leave this as the base for that. I think that will work. I'm actually going to call this level base. Save it, and I'm actually going to do save as well. We're going to call that level base. And I'm actually going to create my my little goals for now, and then I'll show you how to create the other bits too. Go to Other, type in Area 2D, and we're going to add a collision shape. Remember, everything that is sort of like a physics-related object needs a shape to it, as far as I know anyway. We're going to call this, I was calling them levels. I don't know if I like that, especially because it'd be confusing with level. I think I'll just call this a byte. Then we're going to add a sprite. This is not going to be very complicated either. And I think we're actually pretty close to done. We are going to add a script here. Bring it into scenes. And on this script, we're actually going to say export bool var is good. And the reason we're going to do that is this scene actually can be represented, or can be all of our things. It can be good bytes, could be bad bytes. In this case, we're going to want to save all the good bytes and avoid all the bad bytes. I might actually reverse that, thinking about it. Oh, that's an interesting idea. I think it's going to be you want to clean up all the bad bytes. Yeah, I like that idea a lot, and it's a little like a defragmenter running around. Okay, so we'll keep it like that for now. And again, it's the exact same thing where we just have an empty scene, basically. Collision shape with nothing. And we're going to go to New Inherited Scene. We're going to call this good byte 1. Nope, that's not what we wanted. Sorry. We actually do just one byte here. This is the one that it derives from. Now this thing is 16 by 16, so our collision shape only needs to be 8 by 8. We're actually going to make it 16 by 16 so we can place it similar to how our other things work. Ah, hey Neil. How you doing? It's still super early. Well, it's not that early here anymore. About 9 a.m. I guess it must be much later for you. Yeah, and we're just going to save this as is, not our YouTube stream save. Silly. This thing. Good byte 1. And we're going to also make a bad byte. So I'm going to go ahead and New Inherited Scene, and we're going to say byte. That'll leave that off. Move this over. And again, this is just going to be 16 by 16. As you can see, it's too big. I'm hoping, actually, let me change the name here. That, let's take a look. We're going to instance a good byte. I'll just put it down in this corner. In fact, what I'm going to do is also put in a bad byte. Put it right next to it. Now, I am not red-green colorblind, nor am I blue-yellow colorblind, which, little known fact, is the other most common colorblind pattern. Ah, cool. Yes, Pig Dev, I love me some trauma. That's really where it's at. For now, I'm just going to run this and see what this looks like. Oh, they did not show up. Because I do not have level base as my thing here. That's not what I wanted. What am I doing? Losing my mind. Run. Okay. Those look differentiable to me. You can kind of tell that one is good. Well, not necessarily that one is good and one is bad, but you can tell that they are different colors. I'm a little worried this one doesn't differentiate well enough on this background. So I might have to brighten that one up a good deal. In fact, what I think I'll do is I think I'll put the main color on the horizontal axis. Yeah, it's a little bit hard. Wonder if it makes sense to increase the size on them. Yeah, I think that's what I'll do. I think I'll increase the size here. So all I'm going to do is go and double this. Save it. Same here. I already had these loaded. I didn't see that. That's okay. Okay. Is there a... I feel like there's... Much better. Yeah, I think that'll show up a lot better. So I did 50 and 100. Save this. I think I still want this to be flipped to make them even more differentiable. Looks a little weird with the collision shapes on, but I think it looks better here. Did I make that not 90 exactly? That's weird. If you look at the actual thing, it's looks like it's 1 degree off. I'm going to put an 89 here. No, it says 59. Nope. That is very weird. Well, for now I'm just going to leave it as is. It's alright if that has to change. But I do think it looks a lot better now. way more visible. I am going to go into, let's go to byte and turn off collision shape visibility. Should translate. Yeah, there we go. All right, now let's add some functionalities on these guys. All we're going to do here is say body entered, and remember we have to set the collision. So this is going to be a pickup. Actually, we're going to leave everything off for now. We are going to have this interact with player. And the reason for that is a little bit bizarre, but I want good bytes only, or rather bad bytes only, to interact with the to be pickups, and good bytes to be traps. I'm going to make sure I remember and have that right. Let's make sure it works too. So what we're going to do here is node body entered. Okay. Oh, sorry, Aldous. Scared the crap out of my cat. And what we're going to do here is if is good. So in this case, if is good, I'm just going to say body.queueFree. That's not really what we want, but for now it's fine. It must not have actually registered our collisions here, is that? Yeah. So good byte is this is where that thing fails. Really annoying. Okay, and that looks like it worked pretty much exactly as we wanted, albeit a little bit more extreme. We actually don't want the guy to die when he gets hit. So what do we want to do when he picks up a good byte? Well, if we think about what computers do, that's interesting. Well, when you defrag a good byte, nothing actually happens. It just stays a good byte, usually. I was sort of thinking, what if there's a chance that it switches to a bad byte? But I don't think we want that. I think that would be too much of a feels bad type situation. Well, let's think about it. Maybe there are no good bytes. Maybe the things that you're picking up are only bad bytes. And we don't have to worry about any of this. But there will have to be sort of bad things in there that you don't want to touch. If that's the case, they have to do something to the player. Okay, so this is part of this comes in, I think, where I want to have a maximum number of moves that it takes to beat a particular level. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add our base script here now. And we're going to put export int var max moves. And then we're going to say var current moves taken is 0. Now we're going to go into our player and we're going to add a signal moved. I don't think it needs anything else on it. And we're going to say emit signal moved. Our level base will say yes, p ass, that's what I wanted. Player.connect moved and we're going to say current moves taken plus equals 1. Current moves taken is greater than or equal to max moves. We're going to, let's see here. Thanks, Big Dev. Talk to you later, man. We're just going to do, I think we're just going to do a game over. I'm trying to decide how I want to handle the user interface here. Obviously, we'll have a base user interface. But I think all of that can just be signaled from this function rather than connecting to a signal or anything. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now the way you handle user interfaces is you add something called a canvas layer. Canvas layer will automatically not move with the current camera. We don't have a current camera, but if we did, it would not move with it. So we're just putting it on a separate layer because we want things to work properly if we do add a camera. I have never heard of that game, that's for damn sure. But that is super interesting. I never had a ZX Spectrum. I had or I never had whatever plays that, I should say. I had a Texas Instruments computer. And that's basically what I learned to program on in BASIC, a weird form of BASIC that they supported back then. My dad was an electrician, or not electrician, a electronics guy in college, and they gave him a free computer, and it was a Texas Instruments. It was probably one of the first cartridge-based computers, and yeah, it was actually super fun. But anyway, I'm just going to make a basic GUI here. So we go control node. Full rect. And we're going to, let's just quickly, in Asprite, whip up a, a 9-patch rectangle. And you do that by, I don't think I want to make it yellow. I think I'm going to make it blue, make it stand out a little bit better. All you got to do is give it a border. If you want it to have a center, you can do that. Like a center color. I think I actually will. Give it a light gray. I'm going to snip off the corners here. Hi, Aldous. Cat's popping up. I think I'll do that. And we will fill in the center now. This way it looks a little bit rounded. Not sure if I like that actually. What if I put, yeah, I kind of like that. And yeah, that is actually basically it. I'll add a little bit of shading here. So usually when you want to make it look deep, you add shading to the inside layers. So if I do this, for example, I didn't actually want that on. Although it was a little bit helpful, I guess. While you're increasing the border thickness, which isn't great, it will look much better in the game itself by giving it a little bit of depth. And conversely, I'm going to take a lighter color and I'm going to go like this. And on this side, I'm going to add a few extra dots here randomly. And now the reason I'm doing this, simply put, is to make it look sort of like a metallic edge to this thing. You can see it over here. Looks a little bit interesting. I'm going to put it all the way around. I don't think we need it all the way around, but I do like the look of it all the way around. And what I'm going to end up doing is darkening it on one side for a little bit of shading. But just a tiny bit here. Alright, now let's go and check this out in Godot. We're just going to save this as say bottom panel.png. That's too many N's. And we're going to add, let's see here. It's going to be a 9-patch rect. Oops, that's child scene. We don't want that. We're going to put bottom wide. And we'll give it this texture here, bottom panel. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go figure out what our actual border width is here. Again, we're going to hit M, and we're going to select the corner like this. This should give us the exact values that we need. And you notice it says 5 by 5, which is actually smaller than I was thinking, so that's nice. And so you just do 5 all the way down. And we're going to take and switch back to that and make this bigger height-wise. I'm going to try to bring it right up to that, I think. Yes. Yeah, the little bit of blur that you see there is on purpose. Although actually for this part, if that's what you're referring to, it is just so small that Godot can't render it properly at certain levels. You can see as I zoom in, it gets better. It really doesn't have anything to do with what happens in game. But if we look at it in game now, I need to bring the bottom up a little bit because it looks like it's outside the thing. But yeah, you can see it looks a little bit metallic around the outside, and because of the darkness on the inside, it looks like it has some depth, a little bit of 3D depth to it. I'm going to pull this up to the bottom. It's a little bit high. Probably should do this without the mouse. Yeah, let me do it without the mouse. Rect size 372. Not too much. No, that looks good to me. I think I'm going to give it a little space on top too, actually. Just to make it clear that there's differentiation there. Trying to decide if I like how the metallic look is done here, or if I need to make it bigger or remove it altogether. I think I'll just leave it, to be honest. Now let's see here. I'm going to make something that looks a little bit ugly, but what I'm going to do first, standard thing here is to add a margin container to our 9-patch rect. We'll make it be full rect, and then you come down to custom constants and make it have the same border here as what your 9-patch rect has for the borders, for the patch margins. And what that does is that ensures that whatever you put in here is properly inset from those values. So if I go ahead and add, let's say, an HBox container, notice its boundaries are inset all the way from those things, which is kind of cool. I'm just going to add a label for now. One label. This is going to be moves left. I'm going to add another one, and it's going to be I'm just going to leave it as label, whatever. This is going to say moves left. We're going to have to add a theme here because it can't have black, or can't have white on gray. That doesn't make any sense. I don't actually want a new font. I want to add, let's go add our label. Colors, font color should be black. That's our shadow, and this is our outline. Actually, maybe we could leave it as white and switch our outline to black. I would expect that to update. Let's see if it does in game. I don't know why it did not. It's definitely right in the preview. There we go. Now that looks pretty darned ugly. We're going to add a font. Oh, heck. I'll add it now. Have to find it here real quick. Are you saying invert the colors? I actually think it's just the font. It doesn't handle stuff well. It's sort of the default font. Trying to figure out why my stupid thing. There we go. Now I'm going to be using a font that I bought. However, it is technically free, and I know it's going to look a little strange, but essentially what it is a font to help folks who are dyslexic. And so I'm a big proponent of helping people. As you can see, it already looks better. It's not, a great size. I like it better without the filtering. I'm going to add a little bit of extra space, though. Yeah. I know you can remove, it's a little bit strange, but you can remove the amount of space between things like by putting negative values in. So I'm going to do that for now. Yeah, and this font works by, it's kind of interesting, I think it is anyway. Essentially, if you look and see certain things that can be confused easily, the large bits here, like for example this, they're bigger on one side than they are on the other. So like when you have a 2, let's see what a 2 looks like. Because it's flipped around and this part is large, it's different from this one that you can see. And then at the bottoms, they're all bigger usually, and it just helps people who have dyslexia, and I think that's super useful and important. So let's go into our level base. We're going to get access here. Let me just put it down here as well. Max moves we got to make on ready. And we're going to say dot text equals max moves. And then here we're going to else. Actually, I have to make a little trick here. This is a string conversion. We're going to have to do that here too. We're just going to do max moves minus current moves taken. Thanks, Neil. Appreciate it. No, actually, it's pretty easy as far as I know to add your own, well, I should say, not dot label, but underscore. It's pretty easy to add your own bitmap fonts if you create them yourself. Does seem to be a little bit of a bug right now, and when you put it in the theme like I did, it will slow your computer way down. So what you want to do is put it on each label individually, but it definitely supports bitmap fonts that you can create. You can see it here, and throw them in. If you want to see a good, this is to Flavin's question, if you want to see how bitmap fonts look in game, I suggest checking out a guy by this name if you haven't already. He has a series for his game that he's working on with his brother before his brother goes back to school, I think, or to school. I'm not sure how that's working, but regardless, essentially, he has a bitmap font that he imported, and he's also a really good teacher, so hopefully if you can catch him sometime or catch his devlogs. Yeah, absolutely. TTF fonts are normal ones, I think, just dynamic font. But if you're making your own font, usually it's a bitmap font. But regardless, it pretty much is going to be supported. And I think, yeah, we're just going to leave it like this for now. It says 0 moves left. Why is that? Oh, because it's not set initially. Yes, nice. Yeah, his 1-bit course is awesome. Is that how you found the stream or no? Because I'm on the stream, I'm Kyle the Coder. Or not on the stream, sorry. In the chat, I'm Kyle the Coder / back at 50 feet. So you might see me answering a bunch of questions there too. I like to help out with his stream because he really he inspired me to really learn game programming a lot. So I really like his stuff. That's why. Forgot to actually set the value. One thing I'm going to do here. Just pick a random number. Oh, cool. Well, that's good. I like that. Now, something you can see is it seems like my clicking has stopped working. And the reason for that is at the beginning of the stream, I talked about the reason I'm using, if I go back to my player, unhandled input is because I don't want to do this if something in the user interface gets tapped on. Like if there were a button, I don't want it to trigger my player movement if they tap and accidentally swipe on a button. But along with user interface comes weird bugs. So for example, on my root, for some reason, and I will not understand for the life of me why Godot defaults to stop for the mouse filter on a control node, because control nodes have no functionality. So we just want to put ignore here. For anything that it shouldn't be doing anything, we want to put ignore. I'm going to go through every single thing now, because for some reason they don't always default correctly. There's another one. Margin container doesn't have any functionality. Why would I want that? But whatever. And then these shouldn't have it. Let's double check. Ignore. Ignore. Okay, good. Now that we've set that properly, we get our functionality back. That's kind of weird. It went down to 1 right away. I would not have expected that. Oh, interesting. Okay, so it looks like the events are getting sent multiple times. That makes some sense. So what we're going to do here instead in player, I think all we really have to do here is say now the idea here is to, if they do successfully move, we only want that to happen once. Yeah, see, it's happening multiple times, so it's not actually working. Even that's not working. All right, we're going to handle the signal move a little bit differently. We're going to actually put it here. And since that shouldn't run at the beginning of the game, yeah. Okay, there we go. All right, that's much better. I'm going to get rid of the queue free now because that's not really what I wanted in the first place. And I think what I'm going to actually do here is make a signal. So I want to do a signal. Sure. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my bytes, add them to a group. Groups will let you search in the tree for all things of this type. The thing that's nice is, actually not of this type, they have this tag, I should say. The thing that's really nice about them is it doesn't matter where they show up in your scene tree. So in this case, they're under the root level, but they could be anywhere. I could have, a collection of good bytes and a collection of bad bytes all in their own roots, but I don't really want that. So what I'm going to do here now is so now what I'm doing, instead of handling the logic for what happens when you enter the byte here, I'm going to push it up to the parent. That's what you do. You can signal up the tree and call down the tree. That's an important thing to remember. So like if you're up here at the level base, you can call down to any of these things if you want. But if you're going to go back up, do not do, like for example, get parent. You really shouldn't do that. Try not to do owner, those types of things, unless you absolutely have to. And the reason you don't want to do those things is because it will result in a lot of bad code. So if I do move these around, I have to change how many get parents I do, all that type of stuff. So I'd rather just do a signal and have the parent connect to the signal. And how you do that is, in this case, because they're all in groups, and you note, I don't want to reference these individually because when I make my individual levels, these aren't going to be here. It's going to be something else in their place. So I don't want to have a path to it like this. I could put in the collections like I was suggesting and have that be what I reference, but I think doing it by group is a little bit smarter. And so what I'm going to do here now is var bytes equals, and this is how you do it generally, get tree dot get nodes in group, and then you just type in whatever group you put for the byte, or for whatever it is that you want. In this case, it was byte. And that is done by string, which isn't awesome, but it's what you get for now. And now, this is an actual array that this returns, so I can just loop over it, for byte and bytes. And as you notice, since we put it on the base, everyone has this collected function, or signal, excuse me. So I can say byte.connect collected self on byte collected. And we're actually going to do something a little bit special here. This empty array is called the binds array, B-I-N-D-S. We're going to ignore it. It's just going to be empty. But here we're going to put connect underscore one shot. What that means is when you run into these bytes, they will disconnect automatically. As soon as this fires once, it'll disconnect, and you don't have to worry about it. If we wanted to pass arguments from here, like for example, we might do an index for some reason. If you wanted to pass them, you'd put them in that binds array. You don't really have to for the most part. The only reason you have to add it is because it doesn't have a default value when you go to add connect one shot. And if you put null, I think this errors out. It used to. So I just put an empty array. But connect one shot will make it so the bytes only hit once, and that's pretty much what we want. So let's go and add our function out on byte collected. And we put our little byte in here. So now this byte has the type that we have here. So we have is good here. So we'll say if byte dot is good. Remember, if it's a good one, then we want to do something else. In this case, we want to actually queue free the byte. I think here we're just going to call on moved, to be honest. I think we'll lose a move when you run into a byte like that. Notice it went down to 8. If I come back and hit it again, I lose one again. So I should lose 2 whenever I hit that corner. I'm at 4, 3. Oh, because it disconnected, it only hit once. So we actually want to queue free there as well. So I'm going to remove this. We're going to queue free in both cases. And just call the is moved once, or on moved, excuse me. Yeah. Now, I think I'm going to have to take a break so I can eat breakfast here. What I'm going to do on the break while I'm eating is I'm going to add the other levels, or the other bytes as I'm calling them. I'm going to add the bus, give it some functionality. It's probably going to be my redirect. And I'm going to add a pop-up that when the current moves are greater than or equal to the max moves, it just says game over and gives you the chance to restart. Then probably later I'll probably stream again, closer to maybe 1 or 2 of my time. So that's about 3 hours, probably 3 or 4 hours from now. I'm actually going to start doing some random generation on this. We're going to take a little bit of a nice little algorithm to generate sort of rooms, and once that's done, it will have much more complicated things. I'm hoping they'll all be possible puzzles. So we'll see how that works out. But I may not end up doing random generation. I might just create all the levels myself. I think that's probably what I'll do, actually. But I'll come back and I'll show you how to create levels and get into some nice level design theory. And yeah, so thank you very much for watching. I'm going to go ahead and end it now. Let me know if you have any comments. I'm happy to leave this up. And cool. I'm really happy about that, Berflamen. Hit me up on Heartbeat server if you need help or anything like that. I'm always there, always commenting, helping everyone with whatever they need. So thank you all for watching, and have a good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever, wherever, whenever you are. Bye.